Hi, this is Jesper from 4Sound. We're at Copenhell and we're going to have a little chat with Mr. Jim Root from Slipknot. So how are you, Jim?
I'm tired, but good. Everything's cool. A lot of flying, a lot of hotels, a lot of arriving at hotels after flying overnight and getting into your room at 7 or 8 in the morning when the sun's up.
Yeah.
But we're in Denmark now, so the sun's basically always up.
Yeah, it's long days at the moment. That's very nice.
Right.
We're going to talk a little bit about your signature equipment. So in the studio also, you just use the Rock-a-verb and the 412 cabinets.
I use
also.
those, yeah, I use those for main, but I do a lot of blending in the studio, you know. I mean, there was a time where I was blending amps on stage live, but, you know, I mean, you can get to the point where you can drive yourself crazy chasing tone on tour, you know. And I've started communicating a lot more with our front of house engineer, and when you're trying to fit your guitar sound in to another guitar player, a bass player, percussionists, a DJ. I mean, there's a lot of frequencies there that you got to be careful that you're not hitting in order to not mask frequencies, you know. So it's a little bit of a, you have to kind of, like, this is the tone that I want, but I can't really have that tone because if I do that, then I'm cutting in with all the bass frequencies, you know, and you know, the low, you know, tom stuff, it's masking that frequency. So that's one of the reasons why I kind of started leaning towards the Orange and a more classic sort of British Barkey EL34 or 60A7 tone, you know, for live. And in the studio, it's the same thing. You know, I try to get as close to my sound live as I can, but that's not necessarily the best thing because you're, like I said before, you're painting a picture, so it's going to be a little bit different. So you do a lot of blending.
Also because it has to, you know, connect with mix.
Yep, it has to connect. They have to complement each other. They can't really sound exactly the same. That would kind of be pointless, you know. And it needs to sound like two guitar players coming out of the speakers at you and all that, you know. So I mean, that's kind of where I arrived at, you know, over trial and error over the past 15 or 16 years, trying different amps and different, you know, different combinations of things. I've just kind of, this is where I'm at now. And actually, Orange sent me a new amp. The Mark III, and that's actually my main amp in our A rig, which I don't have here with me now, but I love that amp. And I didn't even get a chance to really play with it or set it up. We threw it in the rig and we kind of did a real quick setting on it, and our front of house guy was pissed off. What are you doing? It's going to change everything. It's going to take me forever to figure this out. And he was like, oh, okay, sounds great. Continue. You know?
Yep, after that.
And I'm like, yeah, it does sound great. And so I need to hit up Orange to get a lot more of those. You know, I'm not playing with a bunch of, like, you know, schooled and knowledgeable jazz musicians out on the road, and I'm not trying to get 8 different guitar sounds. You know, it's Slipknot. Yeah. We've got, you know, I do clean in a little bit in a couple of songs, and we've got a dirty sound. You know, so straight into an amp, I use a GCX switching system with pedals on it. You know, I don't have any like processors or eventides or any of that type of stuff. It's all literally, it's essentially a pedal board in front of an amp with a noise suppressor into a 412 cabinet that's mic'd off with a 4050, you know what I mean? And that's...
Yeah, that was Audio-Technica mics you used on the... Yep. So like condenser mics to get a little more frequency going on instead of just, you know, SM57.
Yep.
And what about you had the MXR carbon copy delays also on the board?
Yeah, and I've got 2 pedal boards. Like I've got the GCX, and then I've got a switching system that I don't put out front for Slipknot because it could get, you know, smashed or kicked or baseball bat on top of it. But my guitar tech does all the switching from behind the stage with that. Yeah. But he put a satellite pedal board out there for me, so I've got the Dunlop Custom Shop Crybaby, you know, the rack mount version out there, but I also have a Jimi Hendrix signature wah out there because they both sound a little bit different. And then on the satellite pedal board, I have a carbon copy, and I've got you know, a fuzz pedal and an overdrive just in case I need it, which I hardly use. But that way, the carbon copy, you know, you can kind of play with it and get a bunch of weird noises out of it and stuff like that. So, you know, I'm able to kind of
just
hit like nice, a delay thing and have it repeat over itself.
And I'm thinking about, what about the Tiny Terror, your signature model from Orange? Were you know, in the process of how they voiced it, and you know, to you know, to get the sound you want, or was it more like
A little
high
bit,
gain,
a little bit, but Adrian is a scientist and he likes to just go for it and do stuff. And honestly, the only thing I said to him was, if we're gonna do a Terror Series signature, it's got to sound like a rock reverb. So
Yeah.
he's like, well, how can I make a rock reverb preamp? And you know, and he selected the tubes, he did the wiring, the circuitry, and all that stuff. And excuse me, you know, they sent me one, and I was like, sounds like a low wattage version of a rock reverb, which is what I use. So
Yeah.
absolutely go for it. You know, it's really hard to do a signature amp when there's nothing you want to change.
Yeah, on the
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if they said, "Hey, we want to do a Mark III signature amp for
Yeah.
you," I'd be like, "Okay, so what? Change the color and put my signature on it?"
Yeah, that's-
You know what I mean? I don't think that's very cool. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if I had an idea that I could get to Adrian before he already came up with it,
Yeah.
then it would be cool to work on an amp with them that we could do something like that. But the Terror it's perfect. It's affordable. It'll, you know, I've used it to rehearse with before. You know, I try to use it in the studio, but it just doesn't have the headroom that you need for the studio. In the studio, you're cranking
Yeah, of
things up
course.
really
It's-
loud, you know?
But it's playing really loud also.
Yeah,
The tiny Terror head. It's like, yeah, was it 15 watts and you can change it to 7?
Yep, 14.7.
That's also very nice for most applications. What about your signature cabinet? Is also
Yeah, it's got a
No.
little bit different of a speaker in it. You know, that's why I'm
Yeah.
talking about maybe when we do when we do other speakers. Hi, Corey. You know, we've talked about doing one eventually that has Celestion speakers in it, but for now we're using the Spitfires.
yeah.
And you know, they're good, they're great, and it's like I said, man, this is an amp that's very, very close to what I use. That if you're just starting out and you don't know if you're going to even be into guitar in 5 years, you're not going to break the bank trying to, you know, to get an amp just because it's what. And I don't even know, you know, the sales of them have kind of dropped off a little bit, so I don't even know how much longer they're going to make them for. You know, they might stop making them in a couple of years, you know, and then it'll be like a shit, you can only find them on eBay, you know what I mean, type of thing. I have so many amps at home. I've got Bogners and Boogies and Diesels and Riveras and, you know, Marshalls and whatever, and, you know, Ampegs and, you know, all these amps at home. And you know, I'll start playing through a different amp and I'm like, oh shit, man, this is really, wow, maybe I should go back to using this amp. And then I'll go back and plug a rock reverb in and I'm like, nope, rock reverb's beating it. Love it. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, but I really think they sound really, really nice also. Do you use the reverb in it also sometimes, or maybe not live?
Rarely.
But in...
Rarely, no. I mean,
Yeah, that's not
we're
the
usually
style.
playing big arenas, and there's a lot of reverb in those arenas already. You know.
It's not like a surf.
Yeah, and on
sound.
my clean channel, I have you know, I run a phaser and the carbon copy delay set with just a little bit of slap on it, and I used to run a compressor. I don't do that so much anymore, but that just to color the sound a little bit, you know, for like, and it's quick parts like, you know,
That is the intro for the
Sarcastrophe.
Sarcastrophe, yeah. It's really nice.
You know, that type of stuff, just to give it a nice, brilliant kind of shimmer, you know.